Ryan's office revenge.
"You won't be needed anymore, Larry." Preston Cole didn't whisper it. He wanted the whole room to hear. 8 Fortune 500 CEOs. Every one of them flew in from different states. Chicago, Atlanta, Detroit, Houston were 20 minutes from signing an $850 million deal, contracts ready, pens out. And this 32-year-old kid who's been CEO for 14 months decides now is the perfect time to fire me. I'm Larry Morrison. I'm 47. I've spent 22 years building Atlantic Industries partnerships from nothing. Right now, I'm watching my career get executed in public. But here's what Preston doesn't know. I saw this coming 3 months ago, and the trap I built, he just walked right into it. The words hit me like a rogue wave on deck. I'll admit that, but I didn't move. I caught Harold Williams' eye across the table, the CEO from Chicago. He gave me the slightest nod, not sympathy, recognition. He knew something Preston didn't. 22 years. That's what I gave to Atlantic Industries. 22 years of red-eye flights and hotel rooms where room service was cold by the time I could eat it. I missed my daughter Sarah's high school graduation for a deal in Denver nobody else could close. She didn't talk to me for 6 months after that. Still calls me maybe twice a year if I'm lucky. My ex-wife Linda handled everything alone. Parent-teacher conferences, soccer games, even her mother's funeral, while I was in Phoenix closing the Southwest expansion. That divorce cost me half of everything I'd built. Some prices are too high, even for an $850 million deal. I wasn't just some coordinator shuffling papers. I spoke enough industry language to negotiate without getting screwed. My job was building bridges between companies, contracts, and trust. You know how long it takes to build that kind of trust? Years, not months, not LinkedIn connections. Years of handshake deals in steakhouse back rooms, early morning golf games, where the real negotiations happened over the back nine. Preston Cole was everything I wasn't. Where I listened, he talked. Where I planned for real problems, he planned photo ops. The kid had been writing on deals I'd closed long before he learned how to spell memorandum. I heard him once in the hallway. Didn't think I could hear. He told someone the company needed digital transformation leadership. That's code, means I'm too old. Means my 22 years of experience doesn't matter because I don't have 50,000 Instagram followers. Here's what kills me. Preston kept using these buzzwords. Disruptive thinking. You know what disruption means to guys like Preston? Breaking things that already work, then acting surprised when it all falls apart. Now he was making his move right here in front of 8 of the most powerful decision makers in American business. This wasn't just about firing me. It was about humiliation, about showing everyone that the old guard was finished. I didn't stand up right away. My eyes went to my combat knife letter opener on the table in front of me, a gift from my Navy chief back on the USS Constellation. The blade was pointing perpendicular to the table edge. Combat mode, my fingers moved it parallel. Decision finalized. Let me back up. Tell you how I got here. 22 years ago, I was a junior associate with an engineering degree and military discipline I'd never tested in business. I was 25, just out of the Navy. Most people thought I was crazy, leaving steady government work to chase deals with companies where I barely understood the corporate language. I spent my nights learning business terminology, mornings on conference calls with time zones I couldn't track without 3 clocks on my wall. By year 3, I could switch from manufacturing specs to financial projections in a single conversation. I built my reputation on the hard deals, the impossible ones. There was this negotiation in Chicago, 18 hours straight. We were stuck on one clause about intellectual property rights. The Chicago side wouldn't budge. Our side couldn't give any more ground. At hour 17, I was so tired I could barely see straight, but I caught something, a translation error in the technical specs. The interpreter had used the wrong term for license versus transfer. I stopped everything, called for a break, spent 45 minutes with their legal team explaining the difference. Once they understood we weren't trying to take ownership, just license the technology, the whole thing unlocked. We shook hands 5 minutes before the deadline. That's the kind of work I did. Not sexy, not Instagram-worthy, but it's what built this company's domestic business from $200 million to $3 billion in annual revenue. Preston stood on a stage 6 months ago, accepted an Excellence Award for the Houston deal, my deal, the one with Charlie Thompson's energy company. That project had been minutes from collapse. I'd caught a mistake in the penalty clause at midnight the night before signing. Saved the whole thing. Preston never mentioned my name in his acceptance speech. He never had to. The applause washed over him. I sat in the back knowing I just saved his career from its first real failure. Now here we are in the executive conference room. Preston thought he'd just taken everything from me. He had no idea what he'd just done. I picked up my briefcase. The leather was worn from 22 years of domestic terminals. Inside was a small security device, no bigger than a car key. Military-grade encryption. Preston thought firing me would be simple, clean, final. He was wrong about that. Preston's ambush didn't come out of nowhere. It had been building for months. Small cuts disguised as strategic changes. The first time he used the phrase legacy employee, it was over coffee in the executive lounge. Casual. Testing how far he could push. I didn't react. Just nodded. Kept drinking my coffee. The second time was in a budget meeting. Digital transformation initiative dropped into a presentation like my 22 years of handshakes and closed deals had an expiration date stamped on them. By the third mention, it was investors want Silicon Valley energy. Nobody in the room challenged him. They just looked down at their laptops and pretended they were checking emails. I'd been in the military long enough to recognize an attack forming. What I didn't expect was that Preston wouldn't wait for a clean transition. He wanted spectacle, and he chose his stage carefully. Today wasn't just any meeting. This was the day 8 Fortune 500 CEOs gathered to sign our biggest partnership ever. 4 time zones represented in one room, $850 million on the table. He knew the cameras would be in the hallway, the assistants on standby, the stakes sky high. He didn't want me quietly replaced in a Monday morning email blast. He wanted my removal to be part of his big moment. His coronation 20 minutes before the meeting started, my phone buzzed. Nancy Collins, my assistant for 15 years. Her text was short. He brought her. She's in the hall waiting. I knew who her was. Jennifer Walsh, the so-called strategic hire Preston had been grooming to take my place. 29 years old, Wharton MBA, great at PowerPoint presentations, couldn't negotiate her way out of a paper bag. I stared at that text for a long moment. After 22 years, you learn to keep your intelligence close. I adjusted my jacket, reviewed the seating chart one last time, carried on like nothing had changed. A second notification lit up my screen. This one wasn't meant for me. An internal email Preston had accidentally copied me on 2 weeks ago. I'd saved it. Subject line, photo documentation, leadership transition, executive conference. The body of the email detailed where the photographer should position himself. Best angle to capture the wide shot of the new lead replacing the old one, me being the old one. He wanted my removal documented, packaged, circulated as proof of his visionary leadership. In that moment, I felt tactical disadvantage. There was nothing I could do to stop him from walking into that room and staging his little power play. But under that disadvantage was something colder. Certainty. He was walking straight into a minefield he didn't even know existed. Let me tell you about the contract safeguard clause. Started as an idea 3 months earlier, right around the time Preston won that award for my Houston deal. I was sitting in my office late one night looking at preliminary contracts for this $850 million partnership, and I thought about all the times I'd seen deals fall apart because of sudden leadership changes. A handshake means nothing if the person who gave it is gone the next day. Trust evaporates. The whole thing collapses. So I drafted some language, simple, neutral, professional. If the principal liaison named in this agreement is replaced or removed at any point before final signing, all memorandums of understanding are automatically void. Void. That's the key word. Not subject to renegotiation. Not requires mutual consent to modify. Void, dead, over. The clause didn't mention me by name, but in every draft, every revision, every preliminary document these 8 CEOs signed, I was listed as the principal liaison. Here's the thing. I couldn't present it as self-protection. That would have raised red flags, made people nervous. So I framed it differently. I made it about respect for their time and resources. I used every tool I'd built over 22 years. When I talked to Harold Williams, I used direct, careful business language, explained how this protected his company's investment. With George Patterson, I used precise terminology, emphasized the risk mitigation aspect. You invest months of work, I told each of them. You deserve to know the person you trust will be there until the ink dries. One by one, they agreed. Some saw it as protection against corporate chaos. Others liked the quiet leverage it gave them. A few understood exactly what I was doing and approved anyway. And Preston? He signed off on the contract drafts without a second look. too busy with branding mock-ups and press releases about our bold new direction. The clause was buried in paragraph 7 under mutual obligations. Preston never read past the executive summary on anything. I remember when Harold lingered after a video call, his voice dropped low. "Larry, son, if he tries to push you out, we will leave the table. All of us. No drama. Just business." That's the kind of loyalty you can't buy with LinkedIn posts or Instagram stories. You earn it over years, over deals where you protected their interests like they were your own. The safeguard clause was only the first lock. The second was smaller, more personal. Every contract on that table looked final. Pages as thick with clauses, signatures already in place from each CEO. But those were drafts, legally binding in appearance only. The real enforceable versions required one last thing: my encrypted digital signature. Without it, those documents were just expensive paper. That signature wasn't stored on any company server. Never was. It lived on a hardware security token. The one in my briefcase. I carried it everywhere. Chicago, Atlanta, Detroit, Houston, even today. The system was my idea. Came up 2 years ago after a close call. We almost had a competitor slip in falsified approval while I was in transit between Dallas and Phoenix. Would have cost us $400 million if our legal team hadn't caught it at the last second. After that, I went to our chief counsel, Diane Foster, smart woman. We designed a secure signing process together. Once my token was authenticated and my passcode entered, the signature would timestamp the final contract. Ironclad, verifiable, legal. If anyone tried to access the files without authorization, the system would flag it immediately. Alerts would go out to my personal attorney and an external law firm we kept on retainer. The best part, the system was approved and implemented 2 years ago. Before Preston's time, he inherited it, never questioned it, probably never even knew the details. I could feel the weight of that token in my briefcase as Preston strutted around the executive conference room. He thought firing me in front of 8 CEOs had stripped away every bit of leverage I had. But leverage doesn't vanish when you leave the room. Not real leverage. It follows the chain of trust, and I still held the final link. The moment I stepped away from my chair, something shifted in the room. I didn't speak, didn't protest. Just pushed my chair in with the same care I'd used setting up the room hours earlier. That silence meant something. If you've been in enough boardrooms, you know silence means something's about to go sideways. Around the table, pens that had been hovering over contracts slowly lowered. Pages that had been spread open got drawn together, stacked neatly. I caught eyes meeting across the table. Quick glances, calculations happening in real time. Preston didn't notice, or maybe he noticed but thought it was deference. Respect for his authority. He moved into my seat, started flipping through the contracts like a man who'd already won. "Let's proceed," he said, trying to sound confident, trying to recapture the momentum I'd built over 3 months of careful negotiation. But momentum is fragile. It lives in trust, and the trust in that room had just walked out with me. Preston spent the first few minutes reciting boilerplate, standard language about partnership objectives and revenue projections. Stuff anyone could read off a page. Then George Patterson spoke up, the CEO from Atlanta. He leaned back in his chair. His voice was calm, direct. "Mr. Cole, could you clarify the scope and application of Clause 7? The question hung in the air. Clause 7 wasn't just a number. It was the keystone. The thing that balanced risk allocation across 8 different jurisdictions. I'd written it, negotiated it, defended it through 12 revisions and twice as many conference calls. Preston had never been in the room for any of those discussions. I watched him freeze just for a second. His eyes darted to the page, scanning, looking for something that would give him an answer. "Well," he began. "Clause 7 addresses the scope of Harold Williams." Cut him off. "The CEO from Chicago, without Larry, who ensures our terms are honored." That wasn't a question looking for an answer. That was an indictment. Around the table, subtle movement started. Margaret O'Brien from Chicago closed her leather folder with a quiet snap. Richard Davis from Dallas capped his pen, set it precisely in the center of his notepad. George didn't break his gaze from Preston. From the corner of the room, 2 legal aides quietly gathered their notepads. They walked toward the door without a word. One of the interpreters followed them out. The sound of that door closing was louder than it should have been. Preston's voice started to falter. His sentences got thinner. He flipped pages too quickly, speed trying to mask the fact that he had no idea what he was talking about. The silence in the room wasn't empty anymore. It was full. Full of calculation, full of unspoken conclusions, full of the knowledge that this meeting wasn't moving toward signatures anymore. It was moving toward exits. I stayed where I was, a few steps back from the table, briefcase over my shoulder, hands loose at my sides. I didn't need to speak. In rooms like this, silence says everything. Then it happened. The thing Preston should have seen coming but didn't. George stood up slowly. His chair scraped against the marble floor. That sound in a room like that means the deal's dead. He smoothed his jacket. His voice carried the weight of a final verdict. As per the safeguard clause, our memorandum is now void. Without the named liaison, there is no agreement. He wasn't asking, he wasn't negotiating, he was stating a fact. For a moment, Preston didn't move. He seemed to think he could talk his way out of this. The way he talked his way through everything. We can still move forward. He started gesturing at the folders. We have consensus on the but. George was already closing his briefcase. He walked toward the door without another glance. That was the crack in the dam. Richard stood next, muttered something to his aide, followed George out. Margaret leaned to her assistant, nodded once, started gathering her papers. Preston's voice rose, that brittle edge creeping in that happens when someone realizes they're losing control. If we could all just please sit down, we can resolve any concerns. They didn't even look at him. I stayed still, hands folded. This wasn't my fight to win anymore. I'd already won the moment Preston removed me. Now I was just watching the inevitable play out. Harold moved next. He walked the length of the table, his hand extended. Not to Preston. To me, his grip was firm. Steady? You were always the deal, Larry, he said quietly. His eyes locked with mine for a beat. Then he released my hand and turned toward the door. Preston heard it. I saw his jaw tighten. Something like panic flashed behind his eyes. Near the end of the table, Margaret stood but didn't take her pen with her. She set it down in the center of her open folder, ink tip facing away from her. In certain circles, that gesture is understood. The pen left behind means the deal is over permanently. Preston saw it too. He stepped toward her, voice cracking slightly. We can fix this. Just give me. The door closed behind her before he could finish. One by one, the seats emptied. Chicago, Atlanta, Detroit, Houston, Dallas, Memphis, Phoenix, Denver, all 8 of them, not a single one stayed. What remained at the table were untouched water glasses, scattered notepads, and the faint echo of expensive shoes on marble fading down the hallway. I didn't smile, not outwardly, but somewhere deep inside, there was mission accomplished. I was halfway down the marble hallway when the first raised voice reached me. Preston, sharp, brittle. The sound of someone whose world just collapsed. I slowed down, pretended to check my phone. The words carried through the half-open conference doors. Get legal on the line now. A chair scraped. Someone fumbled with a speakerphone. Our chief counsel's voice came through. Clipped, clear. Preston. Without the named liaison's participation at final signing, Clause 7 voids all memorandums. And without his encrypted signature, the system will not authenticate the contracts. A pause, long enough for me to picture his face going pale, will override it. It's hard-coded. Even attempting to bypass would trigger legal alerts to external counsel. Silence. Then the faint click of a laptop opening. A groan. He was staring at the message I knew would be there. Final signature missing. Contract invalid. An email notification pinged. Sharp. Urgent. A moment later, a junior staffer came rushing out. Phone in hand, whispering frantically to another assistant. I caught fragments as they hurried past me. Atlanta just sent notice to the board, said they don't work with unstable leadership. Perfect. I could hear Preston inside still trying to control the narrative. Draft a statement. Market stability. Strong leadership. No one says void. No one says withdrawal. His voice kept rising like volume could rewrite reality. But reality was moving faster than him. The elevator doors slid shut, cut off the sound completely. I let myself smile then. Small, private. I didn't need to see the panic to know exactly what it looked like. Outside, the air hit different. Sharper. I walked slowly down the granite steps, each one lighter than the last. Halfway across the plaza, my phone buzzed. Harold Williams. I stepped aside, let the crowd of pedestrians flow past. Larry, son. I believe you have already heard the outcome inside. I have. Good. We would like you to serve as our direct consultant for the next phase of this project. Not as an employee of your company, as an independent. Full authority on negotiations and the budget to match. Independent full authority. Those words meant everything. That's generous, I said. It's deserved. Without you, there is no foundation for trust. We want the foundation. We talked for a few more minutes, sketched out what would become my new role. The compensation was higher than I'd ever earned under Preston. The autonomy was absolute. When the call ended, my phone vibrated again. Text from George. If you're available, we'd like to bring you on to lead our portion of the venture. Same conditions, only if you're at the helm. 2 offers in less than 10 minutes. A third notification appeared. Unfamiliar number. We are prepared to sign once Larry Morrison is confirmed as lead negotiator, a major institutional investor who'd been on the fence for months. I stood there, city noise blurring around me. In the space of a single morning, Preston had lost the confidence of the entire Fortune 500 boardroom while I'd been handed the keys to it. I walked toward a quiet cafe a few blocks away, seemed like the right place to start drafting my own terms. After 22 years of building bridges for someone else to walk across, I was finally deciding where they led. 3 months later, I'm sitting in my new office. Corner suite, 42nd floor. Oak desk that's actually mine, not some company asset. The view overlooks the harbor where my first container ship docked back in 2001. Full circle. I'm not a consultant anymore. I founded my own firm, Morrison Partners, boutique partnership shop specializing in Fortune 500 alliances. 3 of the CEOs from that day are founding partners with me. Harold, George, Richard, the deal we closed last week, $1.1 billion. 12 CEOs. Larger than what Preston lost. The circle I drew was bigger than the one he tried to erase me from. There's a knock on my door. George steps in. That same measured confidence. But now there's something else. Partnership, equal footing. Larry, the contracts are finalized. We've all signed. Yours is the last signature. I open the folder. My name printed cleanly at the top. Chief Partnership Advisor. Not buried in footnotes. Standing in bold. We walk into the conference room. I sit at the head of the table. When the conversation begins, my hand brushes something at the corner, a pen. Sleek, black. The one Margaret left behind on the conference table that day. The quiet symbol that the deal was over without me. Thought you should have it? George says. Belongs to the person who kept the deal honest. I turn the pen in my hand. The weight of it isn't physical. It's 22 years. 22 years of flights and sacrifices and quiet victories that belonged to someone else, until now. When it's time to sign, the room goes quiet. No cameras, no applause. Just the sound of pen on paper. I cap the pen. Set it on the table in front of me. The victory isn't about proving Preston wrong. It's about proving myself right all along. Oh, and Preston? Heard through the grapevine he got fired 5 weeks after the conference room disaster. Board couldn't ignore the fact that he'd torpedoed an $850 million deal in front of 8 witnesses. Last I heard, he's working for a mid-sized firm in Denver. Reports to a 54-year-old VP who doesn't care about Instagram followers. His LinkedIn posts about digital transformation get maybe 12 likes now. Most of them from his mother. The funny thing is, Atlantic Industries tried to win back those 8 CEOs after they fired Preston. Sent their new interim CEO to Chicago, Atlanta, Detroit. Made all the right noises about respecting experience and traditional partnerships. Harold Williams listened politely for about 10 minutes. Then he said something that made its way back to me through 3 different sources. Gentlemen, you had Larry Morrison for 22 years. You threw him away for a kid with a PowerPoint deck. That tells us everything we need to know about your judgment. The door closed. Meeting over. Atlantic Industries stock dropped 18% when the partnership cancellations became public. They're still trying to recover. Still looking for someone who can build the kind of relationships I spent 2 decades creating. Good luck with that. Sometimes the old guard wins after all. Nancy Collins, my old assistant, came to work for Morrison Partners 2 months ago. She brought coffee to my office yesterday morning, same as she did for 15 years at Atlantic. You know what I don't miss? She said, setting the cup down. What's that? Watching good people get walked on by idiots. I raised my coffee cup to not missing that. Sarah, my daughter, called me last week. First time in 8 months. She'd seen an article about Morrison Partners in the Wall Street Journal. My picture was on the front page of the business section. Dad, she said, I'm proud of you. 22 years. That's what it took to hear those words. Listen, friend, if you're pushing 50 and some 30-something hotshot is making you feel like yesterday's news, remember this. Experience isn't just about what you know. It's about what you've survived. It's about the relationships you've built when nobody was watching. It's about having a plan when everyone else is just winging it. Your time isn't over. Their arrogance is your opportunity. Let them underestimate what 2 decades of real work can do. Let them think Instagram followers matter more than handshake deals. Let them walk into the trap you've been building while they were busy posting about disruption. Just make sure you're ready when they do, because when someone shows you who they really are, you better believe them. And when they try to throw you away, you better be holding all the cards they don't know you have.